Gịnị bụ Alusi? Some people call it Alusi. Some people call it Arushi. Some people will call it Aronsi. Now, it depends on your community, it depends on where you're coming from. But at the end of the day, it's just meaning one simple thing. Now, we need to understand what Arusi is, because Christianity, colonization has actually presented or distorted the idea behind Alusi. To most people now, Alusi is a place where people commit one kind of evil or the other. But Alusi, if we are being honest about what Alusi means Aru Kose. Now, the concept of Alusi is that if each in community or each family instituted these Alusis because they wanted to perform a certain function. For instance, in a community where they're having problem or issues with fertility, with productivity, with growth, now the elders in that community would decide to institute a concept we know as Akwale or Momo. In other situations, a community might be plagued with war, and they will decide we need to institute something, an entity, an energy that would help us to fight the next community or to fight our enemy. Then it would lead to the institution of a deity or a war deity that would help them during the course of the war. In terms of justice, these communities will institute things that we refer to as Udo. Now, this Udo is a masculine energy which comes with its female counterpart, Ogugu. So you must have heard this saying, Onyeju Udo Okwelo Ogugu. Onyeju Udo Onyulo Ogugu. Depends on your intonation or your tonation. In these situations, if you are being maltreated or somebody is trying to take your property, then you can simply go to Udo. What Udo does here is Udo becomes the deity, the Alusi in charge of peace. As the name entails, Udo. Now, if somebody is trying to collect your property, you can take this matter or the issue to Udo, and Udo will become the judge in this case. Now, apart from these ones I mentioned here, the primary functions of most deities in Igbo land is to settle these kinds of disputes. For instance, we would have heard something about Eto Alose. Now, it becomes a situation where somebody is owing you, or you perform the service to a person, and the person decides to sit on your money. Or if you are being maltreated, you can decide to take this issue to the deity, and once you do that, the deity will become the judge, the jury, and the executioner in this situation. So because these things happen, most people have decided to say yes, because these deities, they don't actually look at people's faces, they don't collect bribes, and they don't even want to know who you are, but they after the truth. Now, because of those things, people have decided to adulterate it, because most times when you take all these cases to modern day courts, now we human beings can actually collect bribe. Somebody is richer than you would decide to go to a judge and bribe the judge, and once that thing happened, you would see that that case would never favor you. But Igbo knows that you cannot bribe a deity. But then there is always a loophole in nature. Now, this means the Akajofo of that deity could decide to go contrary to what that deity says. Now, in Igbo land, every deity has its unso. It's a place you can refer to it as Holy of Holies. They have their unso, they have their things you have to abstain for them in order for them to be functional. That does not mean they cannot necessarily kill you or do something against you, but they decide to leave you. So that most times when you see you come to an Okumo and you see that the Akajofo is going contrary to what this deities entails, you will see that in this situation, that deity would no longer be functional. Now, most of us don't even know this, but some of these deities are saying a body. For instance, in a Newi some certain time, Edo Newi left Newi and went back to her mother's place, which is Idemili, went back to her place in Nobi, and Newi elders had to go and perform some certain rites to bring back her essence back to Newi. So these kinds of things happen. This means that because an Akajo has aberrated or destroyed or on the omelugo ihumuahu, the deity would decide to just shift out and leave that Akajofo to mess up and do whatever it's going to do. That does not mean the consequences will not follow suit afterwards, but it happens. So when you see in this situation and you see that when people take these issues to such deities and the deity judges or punishes somebody that we know that is innocent in this situation, it becomes a problem. That means the person that is in charge of that deity have spoiled the essence, the magnitude of that deity. Another primary function while the deity or Alusi is important in Igbo spirituality odinaani is that deities were instituted because of crime. Now, in situations where there is a high level kind of crime in an environment, in a community, they will decide to institute something, an essence that would prevent or serve as a deterrent to the indigents, preventing them from involving in themselves in these kinds of crimes. So Alusi in those days were things our ancestors used to keep everybody together, to make sure that everybody obeyed the rules and the laws of the community. Now we all know that because of the existence of our journey, most things that are being popularized or we are seen now as being a norm didn't exist in those days. For instance, we talk about incest. We see young people now looking at sleeping with their cousins as some kind of a fad. They are okay with it, and it's things that we consider as aro in those days, and things that are capable of causing some sort of calamity in a community that would warrant them to perform the ritual of aro. Now, other things that we do here is you see a father raping the daughter, not even raping an outsider, but the child. All those things were things that our ancestors, it wasn't popular. It's not something that that was much often in those days. But now it's not that it's been acceptable, but it's been tolerated because we've stopped fearing the concept of our journey. Most people now do it because they now feel that the judgment is going to be in the court system, which they can bribe, or which they can basically use their sweet tongue and pass it without having the right judgment. To conclude this video, I will tell you that there is nothing absolutely wrong with Alusi. We need to understand this concept as things our ancestors did with the right intentions, and most of these deities are still existing up to this day. They're performing their function, their dually functions, and they're being revered in Igbo land. Now, I made a video some time ago when I said that no pastor or reverend is capable of removing an Alusi. The only thing they can actually remove is the Alusi's interface, which we refer to as Ihumo. That's the only thing these people can actually remove. But you've not removed the essence of this deity, and I can prove it. If you think that there is any deity that has removed in your community, in your lineage, use kola nut, go there, ask for one particular thing, and you see your prayers are going to be answered, because those things are there. What these pastors, what these reverends actually remove are just the interface. You cannot destroy the essence or the spirit that has been imbued into that effigy that you look at. All those things, these things are spirit that you cannot see, you cannot touch. So how can you now destroy it? So when you come and destroy, the thing you're destroying is its shelter, its obi. That does not mean that you have removed it from where it is, because it's still existing. So individually, we need to basically start researching about these concepts and try to basically individually we need to start researching these concepts, and when we research these concepts, you can actually make informed decisions about what our culture, what our spirituality is. And when you do these things, you would have to find out one basic truth, that what our ancestors did was not Satan worship or devil worship, because the concept of the devil has never existed in our cosmology. It's something that was brought to us and shoved down our shoulders, our throats by the colonial masters, and something that some of us are still believing and still dwelling in it up to this very day. So I believe that the internet has given us the opportunity to read, or to basically move down to your villages and talk to these practitioners and try to understand what they are doing. And when you do that, you can actually come and thank me back in this blog. And until next time, you can follow this page if you want to learn about Igbo spirituality and cosmology. So guys, take care.